it takes so much strength to reach out for help and to even think maybe I do need help. And I think historically, mental health support has always been looked at as, if you need mental health support, it's a weakness. But I think lately in the last 5 years or so, we've really reshaped the conversation where it's almost...
Welcome to Beyond the Chart, where healthcare begins with a conversation. This is a series brought to you by Ellis Medicine, dedicated to exploring all things healthcare. Each episode brings together Ellis staff for relatable conversations that go beyond a clinical setting. We hope you leave feeling inspired, empowered, and more connected to your health and community.
This information is intended for general educational purposes and is not a substitute for medical advice or care.
This episode explores what it means to protect our mental health and emotional well-being. And that's in an era that often feels like everything is too much. From the constant buzz of notifications to the rising tide of global uncertainty, we're all trying to find ways to stay grounded and connected and truly well. Today, I'm here with my colleague, Tori Daniels.
Hello.
Tori,
thanks for having me.
thanks for being here. It really means a lot that you took the time. So your title is Outpatient Crisis Diversion Supervisor, and you've worked in mental health for more than a decade, and you have your doctorate in clinical social work from the University of Pennsylvania, and right now you're leading Ellis's two crisis diversion programs, which are the living room and the family room. And maybe can we just get into what those are? Because we're doing some innovative work in this space. And can you just kind of elaborate and tell our audience what these programs are all about?
Yes, happily. These two programs are in existence through Ellis. The living room has been at Ellis in Schenectady since 2018. And that's a model that is geared toward helping adults 18 and up in any kind of mental health capacity. And then the family room is similar, but it is for youth ages 10 to 17. And the best way to think of these programs are kind of just mental health walk-in centers. We're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. And people are welcome to walk in as needed.
Yeah, no referral. And a lot of people they know what like an urgent care is. You walk in, you get care. This is almost like that, where you just walk in, you don't need an appointment, you just get care when you need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. And, the genesis of this conversation was really like looking at, we're 5 years out of the pandemic, we're all kind of trying to put ourselves back together. And if the pandemic did one thing maybe well, if it could do anything well, I think it's started to destigmatize this notion of mental health, of seeking care when you need it.
Yes.
Are you finding that people are, just a little more open to seeking care than maybe they were in the beginning of your career?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that a big part of that was the pandemic, is just people started talking about it more. There was this more unified group experience kind of where everybody was feeling some version of isolation. And then, in addition to that, grief and sadness and worry and all those other things. And so this was like sort of a collective community emotional experience that lasted a while. The other piece of it is that mental health services became a lot more accessible in the time, because we were using and relying a lot more on technology. And so virtual telehealth therapy options started popping up all over the place. And so not only did people start to talk about it more, but the services were made a lot more accessible through technology.
Yeah. And, we're 5 years on, right?
Yeah.
So we're 5 years, and it still feels like we haven't moved on in some ways. And there's kind of this crisis of loneliness, crisis of isolation. It's a tough question to answer, but why do you think that is?
Yeah. I think there's, obviously individual factors that affect each person individually, but you're right. It's a collective sense of loneliness, or at times emptiness, or just kind of isolation. And I think there's probably so many reasons for this, and there's definitely social scientists looking into, the in a broader way what's going on. But just from seeing folks in the living room and the family room, there is more of a reliance on technology to meet our social needs. And if you look at research from CDC or many other places, it talks specifically about how human connectivity really makes a difference in terms of our mental and physical health. And so that's one thing that I think really impacts the sense of loneliness is our, hey, I've been texting with someone all day is not necessarily the same as going and grabbing a cup of coffee with a friend.
Right. And so technology definitely cuts both ways, as we all know, right?
Absolutely.
So if we are finding that maybe we need a connection, maybe texting isn't the best answer. Maybe there's something to be said for that face-to-face.
Right. It's a good option. It might not be the best option. And then I don't know about anybody else, but I know sometimes it can feel like isolation begets more isolation. Like the more you kind of say, nah, I don't want to go to this event or go out with this group of people, the more easy it is for you to kind of fall into this kind of hermit life. And I think many people have experienced that. Through the pandemic, we weren't really used to or allowed to be around people very often. So kind of trying to find a way to insert yourself back into your social life can be kind of an uphill battle for some folks.
Yeah. And so for some of us, it's 5 years on and we kind of got into this pattern of not socializing as much as we used to. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of walking around my neighborhood the other day and thinking like, I see my neighbors less than I used to.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this kind of immense difference in how we interact with society, I think.
Yeah, and sometimes it could be. Yeah, I went to a neighborhood association meeting the other day, and I kind of came out of there feeling refreshed and feeling like, that felt good. It just getting civically involved in some way. Can you talk a little bit more about how that could be a tactic for people to overcome?
Absolutely.
That sense of isolation?
Absolutely. I think you hit on something really important is like when you leave these events, it might feel a little daunting or uncomfortable to go, but when you leave these events, it ends up feeling a lot more purposeful, meaningful, and it hits a different sense of fulfillment than if you had joined a meeting via Zoom or something like that. Again, technology is so helpful in connecting people, and it's such a great tool. And the in-person piece is just as important. And so I think in terms of strategically trying to get yourself involved in things, picking something that you're interested in, passionate about, and open to pushing yourself to kind of get into an experience like that. And then recognizing or reminding yourself, hey, at the end of this, I'm probably going to have a pretty good time, and this is going to be really important for me.
Right. Yeah, good advice. I want to go back to the technology piece and the individual and the individual's relationship with hers, their phone, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really just as guilty as anyone else. And like YouTube is one of my weak spots where I'm always like scrolling through. And do you have any advice for folks to kind of how do you recognize that maybe it's time to put down the phone, and B, are there any kind of digital best practices to help us kind of sever that?
Absolutely. This is a topic we see a lot, especially in the family room. A lot of parents of youth are noticing, not just in youth, but also in adults, something that we've kind of termed, or the community has kind of termed, phone dependency or media dependency sometimes, where it feels like trying to take a phone away or limit phone use or social media use is like a life-altering thing. It really activates a pain response in youth, and especially youth, but also can be for adults as well. And what we know is that there are some kind of addictive properties to social media, or even like just the exposure of talking and texting to people constantly. There's this dopamine need that gets met and sort of ends up in that same cycle. And it's fascinating because the pain is very real for the person who is having their phone taken away or something like that. And the importance of getting space and distance from the technology is just as real. And so I think that, if anything, is stressing the importance of being able to set limits and boundaries around our phones. One thing I think I pay attention to, and I think would be great for others to pay attention to, is this concept of media multitasking. This idea of I'm watching a show on Netflix, but I'm also scrolling Instagram on my phone, or looking at my email, or even playing a game on my phone. I do that often, and that's that. I have to police myself on that, because what it's doing is sort of overloading your brain with dopamine, and it's just not a great way to be present. And we know being mindful and present really helps offset mental health stressors and other mental health kind of real problems. So that's one thing, is sort of this managing your own media multitasking is really helpful. And then setting other kind of time limits can be great too. I think folks would really be surprised at what, like, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends for screen time for youth.
And what would those recommendations be?
I don't know them precisely, but I think for kids ages 2 to 5, I think it's like a maximum of 30 minutes to an hour. And then it kind of goes up gradually from there. But even for adults, there's some mixed recommendations, but it's the general consensus is a couple hours. And I think that what iPhones do now is they tell you your screen time, your daily average screen time.
Yeah,
and
which can be shocking sometimes. Like, oh my gosh, I've been on this phone for way too long.
Yeah. Technology is something that's, the effects are just now being studied on developing brains, but also adult brains. And I think it's just important to recognize they really impact both.
Yeah, and we can put into chat
Absolutely.
what those recommendations are. We'll do some research and throw that in the chat just so people have that
Absolutely.
information. But I want to go back to something you had said that, so it sounds like sometimes punishment of taking away a phone or a digital device may not be one of the best practices for parents who are kind of worried about this. Is that a logical punishment? Not that we want to mandate how parents, parent, but what do you see in terms of that, of kids getting their devices taken away?
This is such a great question. In the family room, we do provide a lot of the family strategic planning of how do we address this behavior. If someone's failing their classes, for example, if a teenager's failing classes and there needs to be a consequence for that, sometimes the only effective consequence is taking the phone away, or taking the phone away at 8 p.m. And so they can't be scrolling social media. They need to be doing their homework, kind of thing. There's this opposite side of the coin where they oftentimes do need technology to do their schoolwork. It's very prevalent right now in schools, and it helps really with education in a lot of ways. And so I would never tell a parent to avoid implementing a consequence just because it's hard or causes some emotional distress in the child. What I would say to a parent is recognize that this is an emotional roller coaster for them, even though you still might need to take away the phone. But let's try and provide some additional coping skills or tools for your child, so that when they are feeling this sense of pain when you take the phone away for a specified period of time, they don't have nothing. They have an alternative way to engage with their peers or you in the home. That might mean being more engaged with your kid, playing Uno. Not that they would particularly want to play with you if they're mad at you, but finding other ways that they can manage their emotions outside of scrolling their phone. Because that's what we're seeing, is that's the distraction through the phone is a primary coping skill for a lot of kids and adults.
Certainly for adults too.
Yeah.
And maybe one strategy could be to recognize this, for parents to recognize their own shortcomings in terms of their digital dependency, and then maybe do it as a family. Like, let's address this as a family.
Yeah, I think you also hit the nail on the head. There's nothing more infuriating for a teenager to say, like, you're on your phone at dinner, why can't I be on my phone at dinner? So we do often also recommend like kind of like tech-free time slots or tech-free zones, where if we're all watching a family movie together, we're going to put our phones down and we're going to all put them upstairs. Or at dinner time, any kind of meal time, anytime there's a family conversation happening, don't be checking your email, parents. And just because also the kid can't be checking their Snapchat.
Yeah, all good, good thoughts there. And you had mentioned the kind of the quick hit dopamine fix, and so like for me, like I'm scrolling through YouTube, and it's always this thought that, oh, maybe I'll find something that's really entertaining and it'll be great, and it's all these quick hit dopamine fix.
Yeah.
But I think good management of your own mental health is to maybe seek out those dopamine hits that are harder to get, right? Like in terms of, I'm going to take a walk instead of scroll, right? And
Absolutely.
then that those feel good kind of emotions come through. Sometimes the harder decision, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to get off this couch and I'm going to actually get out and walk.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting. They differentiate between like short-term bursts of dopamine or like longer term, like delayed gratification kind of. And a walk is a great example of a delayed gratification, whereas scrolling is just instant gratification. And that really kind of short circuits our brain sometimes. And yeah, so exactly. Taking a walk is wonderful. Doing some mindfulness activities, that's excellent. Talking with a friend in person or over the phone is great, but trying to steer clear of this short attention span bursts, I think is a great message to take away.
Yeah, and I think my ulterior motive for having you come in today was just to try to get over my own YouTube addiction.
Yeah. Everyone's got something right now. It's
right.
We've all had such easy access to it, and the apps do a great job at trying to keep people on their sites too. So it's not an individual failing or anything on anybody's part. It's really something we're all trying to figure out how we balance this.
Yeah. In some ways, it's also like, tell yourself it's not my fault. I mean, I don't want to make this an avenue for railing on tech companies, but they're very savvy in terms of keeping you on those apps.
Absolutely. They really do know us.
Yeah, I know. It's well, everyone agrees it's kind of scary. So, and so I want to just shift gears a little bit, because it is a tough time. There's economic uncertainty. And I don't want to make this a polarized political discussion, and it doesn't really matter what side you're on.
Yeah.
I think everyone can agree the polarization in politics is anxiety producing, or it turns people, we see a lot of rage out there.
Absolutely.
And a lot of us have like family dynamics or dynamics with friendships that are being frayed because of politics. A, do you see that a lot in your practice? And B, do you have any just common sense advice that might work?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a lot of folks who actually since November of 2024 have come in with political stressors, whether it's certain policies being implemented or relationships being frayed because there's such strong not disagreement doesn't seem to cover it. It's really strong polar opposite opinions, and it does cause a lot of damage to relationships, and to kind of connect to what we were talking about earlier. Human connection is so important for us humans, and it's critical actually for those of us, especially who might struggle with anxiety, depression, sleep issues, other kinds of physical health issues. There's so many positives to having strong social connections and social supports in our life. And so if we're kind of noticing more separation, that's just enhancing sort of the isolation people are already going through. So absolutely, those difficult family conversations are just being avoided now. And I think there's a real good reason for that. If you, it's sort of like if you don't have anything nice to say, or don't have anything that's going to bring you closer to connection, that's okay. You can set whatever boundaries you want around those types of conversations, whether it's I'm not engaging in it or I'm not engaging about XYZ kinds of issues. And it's also okay to still talk to these important people in your life about other things, even if you, to your core, disagree with some of the things that they feel strongly about. One of the things that gets said a lot in the field of social work is everyone is doing the best they can with what they have and what their circumstances are. And those could be things like their own personality, their life experiences, their income level, their life stressors, their own biology, how their genetic makeup is wired, how they're, what kinds of things they're exposed to on the internet even. And so I think trusting that most people are coming to situations or opinions with the idea that they are doing the best that they think they can is really, really helpful to be able to communicate with folks in a non-judgmental way.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just everyone's doing their best, right? In my household, in the Schwartz household, my wife and I came up with 5 tenets to live by, and they're posted in our house. And there's 5 of them. And the 5th one is we don't talk about politics or religion. And it kind of gives us a little cover, because if somebody is over and they're talking, we just don't talk about that. It's tenet number 5.
It's our tenet.
Do you think? And I think it's like if you're just going to end up, having almost like a non-productive talk that's just going to end in everybody feeling badly, it's better just to not do it. Do you think that's good advice? Just don't talk on it and just find some common ground?
I think it can be great advice. Obviously, there are certain circumstances where someone's belief might really maybe target someone else's identity or where it's hateful, and maybe those are relationships that aren't okay to just leave silent and let it go. But I think very often it's okay to just not even broach that subject. I think that's a great thing to have posted. This is our boundary. This is our family boundary. The purpose of you coming over to our house is not to, in fact, talk about politics or religion or anything else that might really disrupt the peace in the house. So we don't need to talk about it. There's no need to talk about it. It's also okay to respect other people's boundaries around those things. If they're not okay not talking about it and you're not okay talking about it, then we need some time apart, maybe.
Yeah. And then, find that common ground. We all love our children. We all, we want to have clean water to drink. We want to live in safe neighborhoods. These are things that all bring us together.
Yeah, I think the polarization that we're experiencing now comes from kind of demonizing each other. But it comes back to this idea of if you're doing the best you can with what you have to work with, or each person is doing that, then it helps in sort of understanding their why, somebody else's why, who you might not agree with so vehemently. But recognizing someone else has a why can be sort of a good cool off bath for yourself.
Yeah. And I think the news, that segues into another topic, just the news. That can be very, very triggering for people. And it's constantly, it's on our phones, our phone alerts are going off. And I'm kind of a news junkie, and I like reading the news and watching the news. But I do recognize that there's times that I just have to turn it off, because it's really not helping me. Yeah,
that's often what we say if someone is, especially someone, let's say, who's coming into the living room and is talking about it's boiling over. There's so much happening in the world, and we're so lucky that we have access to so much information worldwide. But that can be really too powerful to have the knowledge of everything horrible that's happening in the world every single day. Can be a lot. And that's exactly what we say to people, is like giving yourself permission to give yourself periods of time where you're maybe just reading the headlines and not reading the article, or maybe not even maybe not even getting the notifications, turning those things off. Obviously, putting your head in the sand is not generally what we recommend for long periods of time, but each person is different and each situation is different. And there are definitely periods where it's really okay to give yourself the permission to turn off for a bit.
Yeah. And we have a great potential to be, there's a hot news story of the day, and do you need to read 12 news stories on that,
Right.
or watch 12 YouTube clips on that one topic. Maybe you know what you need to know about that. It's time to get out and do something else.
Absolutely. And the another thing to pick up about on that is the algorithms do pay attention to what we're looking at, what kind of news. And so it's a lot easier to just be mindlessly scrolling Instagram and be inundated with certain types of posts, where if you do pay more attention to those things, you do get more. So it is sort of this like self-feeding cycle, or it can be. And so paying attention to like what device you're using to look at certain articles and things might also help limit your exposure.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about, different factors that could be contributing to our own kind of, mental health challenges. When do we know whether it's just a rough patch or when we really might need to seek help?
Yeah. This is such a great question because, first of all, it takes so much strength to reach out for help and to even think maybe I do need help. And I think historically, mental health support has always been looked at as, if you need mental health support, it's a weakness. But I think lately in the last 5 years or so, we've really reshaped the conversation where it's almost cool to have a therapist and be able to work on yourself. And there's so many ways to work on yourself, whether it's you want to become a better leader at work, all the way to you're really struggling to get out of bed because of some depression happening. All of this to say is mental health, just like physical health, waxes and wanes in terms of how well we're doing. And there are periods of time where we're not doing as well. Maybe we're not sleeping as well. Maybe our mood is shifting quite a bit. Maybe we notice we're not able to really enjoy things that we used to enjoy as much, or really not really able to function as well at our jobs or with our family. And it's happening kind of more often than not. That's when to reach out. And I always say the first step is talking to a person. Maybe before that, you might talk to a dog or a cat or something about it. Those are sort of like your special bonds, but you really want to reach out to friends, family, a coworker, email a professional. It's really accessible to go on to Google right now and find people who are close to you and just kind of see like, what would my first step be? What we always tell people is it's not going to get better if you're not trying something new.
Yeah, good advice. And I often think that one of the keys to living happily and successfully is being good at asking for help. That's what I'd like to impart to my children. Be good at asking for help when you need it. So do you think it's good to check in with a therapist when times are good? Because sometimes we just kind of wait until it's a hard time. It's a hard time to establish a relationship with a therapist when you're in crisis mode.
Yeah, definitely. This is such a great question. And I think it applies to everybody and also especially parents as well, of youth, because we see oftentimes it's, oh no, I'm in a crisis, or my kid is in a crisis. I need to get help right now. And the motivation and the activation that inspires is imminent. We're on the hunt. We're like looking for some help. And then when things do get better, because they've been working on coping skills, or you've been really kind of challenging how you're thinking about things and able to reframe stuff, that's times where people are like, oh, I can lay off this. I don't need to keep going at this rate. And maybe that's true. You don't need to meet maybe as often, but as a therapist, it's really important to meet with people when things seem to be going well. Because we like to hear our clients are doing well. But more importantly, that's when you can really do some deeper work, when there's not a lot of emotional work that's happening in terms of just getting us back to baseline. If we're at baseline, that's where we can really dive into deeper things, and that allows for more exploration. If someone's kind of in crisis mode, we're not doing a whole lot of exploring. We're really trying to kind of cope. And so a lot of the long-term work can happen when things are going well.
Yeah, great points. Great points. And I think it's worth mentioning that the reason why we started the family room and the living room was that people were coming to the emergency room in kind of full-blown crisis, and it really wasn't. It's not really the best place for a mental health crisis because there's a lot of other things going on. People can certainly come if they need it, but the living room and the family room were designed to be these kind of warm, calming, real home-like environments when people are having a crisis.
Yeah.
Can they show up when it's not a crisis?
Absolutely. One of the things that I love so much about these programs is it's really come as you are, come as you need to, and you'll meet with someone who you can develop a relationship with. And we don't obviously provide ongoing treatment. We really try and get people connected with long-term resources. That's one of our main goals. But if someone's not in a crisis, they can absolutely come in and just check in. To go back to sort of what's a theme we're weaving throughout this whole conversation is social connection is so important. And I think the living room since 2018 and now since 2024, the family room really are serving as community access points for mental health care, care management, connection to resources, all those things, and social connection. I'm so proud of the staff that we have there because we always meet clients where they're at and really try and just engage in listening, which is really half of what people need sometimes. It's just that social connection to kind of like this touchstone of here's my people. I can come once a month. I can come every couple years, and I kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, and I give your staff a lot of credit and the whole team a lot of credit. We're proud of the work that you do, and coming from Ellis, I'm really proud that we put a priority on this for the community. And one of the things that I kind of from kind of the wonky healthcare policy side of things that we the insurance industry almost hadn't caught up with this model yet. So when we first started, we weren't getting reimbursed or anything like that.
Absolutely.
And so then people were coming in. We were serving the community really free with the help of a lot of donors in the donor community, which was I found personally kind of inspiring.
Very much so. I it's one of the things I just gush about when I talk about, because there's not a lot of other places, healthcare places, that prioritize mental health this way. But Ellis really recognizes that mental health and physical health are intertwined. And Ellis really has a strong stake in being a leader in the community and a place for people in the community to turn to. And so being able to have these two programs be basically entirely grant funded for as long as they've been open is so amazing and really truly speaks to Ellis, but also the generosity of the donors.
Yeah, for sure. And now the insurance industry is kind of caught up, and we accept insurances, but if people don't have coverage and no ability to pay, they're not going to be charged.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the main elements of what we want to have in terms of these programs being sustainable. We are billing insurances, which is great because the New York State Office of Mental Health has just certified us as programs under their certification. So we are able to bill for insurances. But yes, if someone doesn't have insurance or doesn't have the ability, they're not going to be billed.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. It's good to know. It's good for the public to know that this is out here in those in the capital region of New York State or a little bit beyond, because I know we draw from a lot of different places throughout the state. So, just kind of want to wrap things up and kind of bring things to a close here. But if somebody is kind of, really needs help, what's one or two things that they can take? What are a few steps they can take like right now? Yeah,
absolutely. One, I would say, like I mentioned before, talk to somebody in your life, family, friend, coworker, a professional, call 988. There's lots of options to just like speak it out into the world to just kind of get help. The second thing is coming to the living room or family room is such a powerful way to get started. One of the things that I always like to say, and our staff carries out beautifully, is when you come in, we're going to have you leave 2 steps ahead. That's our goal. And so if you're coming in and you don't really know if you need a therapist, or you don't really know if you want to get medications, a referral for getting medication somewhere, you don't really know if you want to go to a support group, come in and talk and we can go through the options. And if you decide, you want to get connected with some resource, we will make sure that that connection happens, so you don't have to leave and go home and call a bunch of places and wait to hear back. We'll go through the paperwork with you, submit it for you, and we'll send you on your way. So all you have to do is wait for a phone call. The other thing is, some people might be listening to this and have someone in their life they might be worried about. And so there's a couple things I think that are important to recognize, is just kind of not coming from a judgmental place, but going and being curious with them, actively listening. Put your phone away and ask them kind of what's been going on, how they're doing, can be really eye-opening for the person and for you. Sometimes people need the door opened for them to be able to talk about it. And one other technique that we tell parents a lot of times is using I statements. And so saying something, it's basically just a statement that starts with I'm feeling worried about how much time you're spending in your room, or I'm feeling worried because I notice like you're not really sleeping as much, or any kind of fill in the blank. It tends to kind of put the onus on you and not on them.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think that's a great place to stop. And I think that, a key theme today is just some human connection and trying to connect with people face to face is important. So I'm glad you came in today.
Yes, happy to be here.
And connected with us today face to face. And again, thank you for everything you do for Ellis and the community. And thank you to your team. And it's just enjoyed our chat.
Thank you. I did as well.
If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who might need to hear this message too. It helps us grow our community and brings more voices into the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in to the episode of Beyond the Chart. And today's topic was staying well in a world that feels off balance. If you found it helpful, stick with us. We'll be exploring even more conversations around wellness, health, and how to navigate the system while becoming your own best advocate.